Welcome back. And now, an additional 30 minutes with Mark Metcalf, the master. So, when you moved to New York, is that the time period that you met Griffin Dunn?
Yes, it was in New York. Yes. Yes, I met Griffin when I was doing Streamers. His best friend, Kerri Fisher, came to see the play, and she loved it. And she knew Peter Evans, who was playing Richie, the other white kid in the play. And she brought Griffin because he was a good friend from when they were growing up together, and introduced Griffin. And I was madly in love with Kerri. So I befriended Griffin because that's what you do. She loves him. She knows him. They're friends. I'll be friends with the guy. And Griffin and I became really good friends. And then
You produced a movie together as
we
well.
produced Killer Scenes of Winter from the Ann Beattie book. Yeah. With Amy Robinson, who was my girlfriend at first, and then Griffin's girlfriend, and then Griffin's partner long after I left and went back to just acting and stopped being a producer. Chilly Scenes of Winter
Yes.
was the first thing we produced with Joan McNitt-Silver writing the script and directing.
And John Hurd in it.
And John Hurd, who I mentioned, and Mary Beth Hurt, and the brilliant Gloria Graham plays John's mother, and Kenny McMillan, who had been in Streamers with me. Oh, Peter Riegert, who had just been in Animal House with me. It's a nice little small movie about people.
Yeah.
And there's no superheroes in it. There's no blood in it to speak of. There's a suicide attempt, but that's all. And that's kind of comical the way we handled it. And it's a really nice book.
How old were you when you did that? Because it seems really early in your career to be producing. It's so impressive to do that young.
It was foolish of us all.
You didn't know what you were getting into.
We didn't know. Amy had done Mean Streets and really wasn't doing much acting after that. Griffin hadn't. I don't think he'd really done anything except some stage stuff in New York. He's just really young guy because he's younger than I am. I had done Julia, and I had done I went to do Julia when we first started talking about it. And then I came back, and then we started talking about it more seriously. Amy brought this book and said, read this book. I think we should make a movie out of it. And we just said yes to everything. It was
Great,
life is a
sure.
great improv.
Let's do it.
Yeah. And the
Let's
first
put on
rule
a
of
show.
improv is say yes. So we said, yeah, why not? Okay. And we did it. And then I went away to do Animal House. And we all met together in Los Angeles at Griffin's mother's house, where he was living and Amy was living, and I was there all the time. And we've sort of decided to do it. And I think if we knew what we were doing, I don't think we would have done it, because we got told no so many times. No, you're too young to produce. No, you don't know anything about producing. No, this is a book about people. Where's the gunfire? Where's the cars blowing up? No, this won't make a good movie. But we know that no means no in that situation, because it doesn't. If you're just persistent and you keep going and you believe in it. And we were lucky enough to eventually find a woman named Claire Townsend, who was a vice president of creative affairs or something like that. Basically, it meant when Claire started at 20th Century Fox, she had a cart full of books and scripts that she was supposed to read. She didn't have an office, but she had business cards made up that said from the chair of Claire, because she had a chair in the corner of an office. But that's what she did. And she loved the book. She loved the idea of Joan McNitt-Silver. She liked us. Ann Beattie, who wrote the book, also loved us, because we went up to Cambridge and just knocked on her door. And she said, well, come on in, because she thought we were like characters out of her book, the three of us. It was like a Jules and Jim movie, the three of us together. The way energy flowed around when we just started flowed through us all in this circle. There was like nobody knew who started the sentence and who finished the sentence. And Claire loved us. And when she got the real vice president's job in an office at United Artists, she said, come with me. And we went over to United Artists, and they did it. And it was this triumvirate of Stephen Bach, Claire Townsend, and David Fields, all young. And it was a great place to be. And we got to do the movie the way we wanted to do it.
Yeah.
A man named Paul Helmick, I hired as our production manager, who had worked his way up with Howard Hawks from a second AD to be his producer the time he was doing Atari and Real Bravo at the end of his career. And Paul was great. He carried us on his back for the whole production.
You told a story, I think, that's illustrating a lesson that's so important in entertainment, but also in life, that no doesn't mean no. that if you have the perseverance and you want to do something, there's always a way. We just watched this incredible documentary called Nikki's Family. It's about this man who basically saved all of these children during Nazi Germany from Czechoslovakia who had been told you can't do anything. And his main motto is, if it's not impossible, it can be done. And you have to get a thick skin, especially in the business that we deal in, because you're told no so many times. And at first, that's hard for people starting out. I think it's good to hear that there's going to be a ton of no's, but there's always workarounds. You can find a way to make what you want to do in your dreams happen.
Right. And the people who say no aren't always wrong. They may be right sometimes or in some way. Because, as Simon Beckett says, fail better, fail better, fail better. So if you go out and you get a no, you've got to really think about maybe there's a reason for that no, and maybe there's something I can do about it. Maybe this person who's saying no isn't just slamming the door in my face. Maybe they're helping me think about this more. So you've got to hear what people say and use it, but don't take it as a go home and take a job selling shoes or something like that. Your creative instinct, your urge, your desire, your need is more important than any no. Use it. Use the obstacles. Obstacles are great for actors. You create them if there aren't any in the script. Create them just so that you have to make a sandwich while you're telling your wife you're leaving her. It's an obstacle. It'll make it better. It'll make it a better scene. And then decide not to eat, that you weren't hungry after all, or you lost your appetite.
How were you cast in Animal House?
That's a good story. My agent gave me the script to read. I was going in to meet John Landis and Michael Chinich, the casting director, for the part of Otter, Tim Matheson part. But as soon as I walked through the door, Landis looked at me and said, "Do you know how to ride?" And I said, without skipping a beat, I said, "Of course I know how to ride. I was practically born on a horse. My mother's water broke when we were out on a trail ride at our ranch in Montana, and she slid off the horse, and my father slid off his horse, and he delivered me there in the shade of the horse. He delivered calves so he could deliver me."
Was any of that true?
No, I'd never even been to Montana at that time.
You decided to go big with the whole story, too.
If you're going to lie, yeah, you got to lie. And you always say yes. Do you know how to speak German? Sure.
Yes.
And you've got 2 days or 3 days or a week before you go.
You'll cram. You'll learn it.
Yeah. I learned to play the saxophone for a play. But I told him 6 lies about how I knew how to ride. And all of them, he looked at me and said, "Yeah, right." And then he called me and said, "I want you to do this part. You're going to have to come back in." I never had to audition. I just had to lie. And I said, "Hey, John, do you think you can get some money from Universal so that I can take riding lessons?"
So you actually fessed up.
Yes.
At that point.
Oh, yeah. I felt like, he knew every time he looked at me and said, "Yeah, right." He likes the show business. John does. And yeah, he got me $300. I took lessons for a month or so at Claremont Stables in New York in Central Park. It was great, with a little blonde German woman with a riding crop that I thought was for the horse, but I think I got it more than the horse got it.
But you ride so well in the movie, so you did pull it off.
I did. I pulled it off.
Yeah.
I'd been on horses before. As soon as you understand that it's a 1,500-pound animal and it can own you in a minute, if you don't relax and just know that you're in charge, the horse wants you to be in charge. And I think I've always been probably pretty good with animals. And that's the biggest part, is just so that you're not afraid of the animal, no matter how big it is. And you know you're in charge of that animal, and it needs you to be in charge. It needs you to take control of it. Then the horse will listen to you. And then there are lots of cues you have to learn about how to make the horse go left, make it go right, know how to back up, know how to rear up, and all that stuff.
Your last meeting then, did you actually audition at that point, or was it still just a meeting?
No, I had to audition. I just had that one meeting with John. He knew, I think Belushi was cast first and I was cast second. And I think to a certain extent, John and Michael Chinich wanted to sort of find the two poles of the movie. If in the movie were a balancing act, and they build us around, and I was the bad guy and John was the good guy. The only other time I went in was to audition, but that was for the guys at Universal, and Landis already told me, "You got the part, I'll do whatever I can. All you got to do is show up and say the lines." And I had a lot of fun with that because Michael Chinich played Flounder, and we did the scene where I scream at him on the football field.
Yes.
And I had my script rolled up, and I hit him with the script and spanked him. It was great fun being able to do that to a casting director. I knew Michael enough just from the meeting a couple of times to know that he would take it well. He wouldn't say, I'm never casting you again. Although he never did. No, he did cast me in something. What? Oh, Where the Buffalo Roam with Billy Murray.
Is it true that you moved hotel rooms on the shoot?
Yeah, we all got there, and Landis did everything he could to set it up so that the Omegas, my fraternity, were very much aware that the Deltas were the bad guys and we were the good guys and keep us separate. When I arrived on the plane and went to the production office and got my per diem, get your per diem right away because they may decide you were the wrong Mark Metcalf and tell you to go home. And at least you've got, a week's worth of per diem, which is the money that they pay you to eat. And the production manager, Peter McGregor Scott, said, Landis is in the coffee shop across the parking lot of the Roadway Inn where we live, and he wants to see you. He's over there having lunch. Go see him right now. Leave your stuff. So I went over there, happy that I hadn't been turned away, anxious to see John again because I like John. I go into the crowded coffee shop, and I see Landis at a booth, a big booth across the way, and I see Peter Riegert, who I knew from New York. He was there. We're not close friends, but I knew him. Belushi, who I'd met once before, and I knew him. Bruce McGill, who was a good friend, and he was in it. And they were all sitting around this table with Landis talking. And John said, come on over. And I walked across this room, crowded room, and I get about 10 feet away from the table. And Landis says, that's him. That's Neidermeyer. Get him. And they started throwing real food at me.
Oh my gosh.
Catcalling, just like it was a scene from the movie in the middle.
Right.
Humiliating me. And so when Bruce McGill stole a piano from the hotel, from the lobby of the hotel, and moved it into his room so his room could be Party Central,
Party Central, yeah.
I had the hotel move my room to right above his, but I wouldn't be able to get any sleep because they'd be partying all night long.
So you'd be even more angry at them.
I sat up there studying my script and spit polishing my boots, my riding boots, and getting angrier and angrier and finding it in the script. The whole shoot, I never really hung out with those guys.
It wouldn't feed you that well to do that.
Yeah, I found a ranch on the edge of town that had some horses that they didn't use. I went out there and asked them if I could exercise their horses. They said, yes, there's the bridle and there's the saddle. Go get them. So every day when I wasn't working, I'd go out there and saddle up a horse and ride. Had to go out into the pasture and get them because when a horse doesn't get ridden, he remembers what it's like to be wild, and they don't like to be ridden necessarily until they're ridden consistently. So I had to trick them. If I'd go out there with the saddle over my shoulder, they'd be way around at the end of the pasture and run away from me. So I just had to go out there with a handful of oats.
Coax them, right?
I like those horses.
My book just came out.
I'm so excited to finally read what you've been working on, Daddy-O.
I hear it's about mental health. Mark Metcalf's memoir, Timmy, is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble now. The ebook is available too.
What about recurring roles on Ally McBeal, on Star Trek Voyager? Can you talk a little bit about those characters?
Not always, but from early days as an actor, I've played with the script a little bit, rewritten it, perhaps, ad-libbed things, not all shooting, but always running it by the director. Writers don't always write what fits in an actor's mouth well. Writers don't always write the way a person talks. I think I'm a good writer. The thing on Interview with Matt Damon where he talks about what a good writer Jack Nicholson was.
And Marlon Brando did that a lot.
And Brando did it all the time.
Jack Nicholson, actually, the whole end of Chinatown is really his end.
David Kelly insists, you almost have to say comma. He writes well. He writes good stories. He does write.
But he doesn't want anything changed at all.
Nothing changed. And I was in the habit, so I got in trouble on that. Star Trek Voyager, I'd already had the experience of being prosthetics for Buffy when I did the 2-episode arc as a Herosian medic. But the craziness of that was that they had imagined the Herosians as all 7-foot-tall actors, all men. I don't think there were any women. And they quickly used up the 7-foot-tall actors in Hollywood. Then they went to the 6'2" actors like myself. But they already made these big top head to toe foam costumes to give them big muscles and it just makes them really seem like strong warriors and completely covered face. They'd already made those. They didn't want to spend money to make new ones. So I wore one that was made for a 7-foot guy with about 4 inches or 5 inches
Oh.
folded over in the middle,
Oh.
been worn by a 7-foot actor, so it smelled bad.
Oh, no.
No matter how much you clean it. And the face, I wore a new foam mask every time on Buffy,
Yes.
but the face, the head mask, was the same one every time, sort of pulled together in the
Oh.
back so it fit. I lost 15 pounds.
Oh, my goodness.
Once you're in that thing, you only get out of it to pee, and you sweat like crazy. It was a hard 2 weeks to shoot those 2 episodes, I think. But what's amazing about Star Trek is that world that they've created through the early series and all the subsequent series and the movies. The detail of the world and the knowledge of the world and the depth of that world is a great resource for the actors. And nowadays you have to create it with a green screen, and even in that, some of that was green screen stuff too. But it helps you create the world. The models of the Starship Enterprise are so perfectly designed inside and out, and you can see them. Yeah, it's
All the specifics of that. What about Hill Street Blues? Didn't you recur on that and they wanted you to do longer and something happened? What's with the Hill Street Blues?
As I remember, when I got the part, they asked me if I wanted to do a recurring throughout the season, and I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do a series. I didn't want to get into that box for that long, because you signed a 5-year contract.
Yeah, and also for people that are listening now that are younger that don't know, at that time period, it would very much was you either did stage and film, and then TV was separate. You couldn't overlap the way you can now. There was a division between that at that time period.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're exactly right. And I often forget that. Although agents would always say, Steve McQueen started out in TV.
Yeah.
Steve McQueen. Anyway, I created the character and did the character. I think I did 3 out of the first 5 episodes. And they were everybody was finding itself and trying to develop this thing. The camera moved differently than it had ever moved before. The naturalism of the acting was different than it was in almost all television soap opera dramas. It was a brand new thing, and it was really brilliant in its day.
Bochco show, yeah.
Stephen Bochco. Yeah. And Greg Hoblet, too, was on it. And David Milch, who ended up doing Deadwood.
So you said, no, I don't really want to do that. And then what happened?
I said, no, I don't want to do it as a lifetime. I don't want to sign a contract. So they said, okay, well, we got the character, do these 3 episodes. And then after the second episode, I was really having fun creating this misogynistic, racist asshole. I mean, he was fun to do because he was so cocky.
So awful. Yeah.
And so arrogant. And I came to them and said, I've changed my mind. I wouldn't mind doing a whole season. If you've got an arc for this character, he can work his way through it. And they said, we're sorry, but the network says we have to kill you off.
Oh, no.
You're too nasty. You're too mean. You're such a bad character. We have to kill you. So in the next episode, I had my throat cut by a hooker I was trying to get a freebie from.
So you missed that boat. You maybe could have gone longer had you said yes initially.
Yes, I might have. I would have done it if I'd missed the boat. But in many ways, I'm glad I missed the boat because it allowed me to do a lot of different things, do more. By the time Buffy came along, and it was unique in many ways. A woman had the power of life and death in her own hand. It was about vampires, and it was funny, and it was serious at the same time. It was about high school. People have done high school forever. But it had a wit and a sense of irony and a sense of humor and a sense of reality that people hadn't seen before. It was unique. And I realized that when I saw it, and I was older when I saw that too. And I was married, had a kid. So I was more ready to say, yes, I'll do a whole season, not just an episode or 2 episode or 3 episode arc.
I wanted to ask you about getting cast as the Maestro in Seinfeld. What was that process like?
It was a long process. I was one of, I don't know how many people, but 500 or 1,000 that came into audition that were sent up by agents, and their casting director said, yeah, we'll see them. And I did that. Oh, that was on a Tuesday, and then I got a call back to go back in on Friday, maybe. This was after being told that it started to shoot on Monday. I drove in, I did the first audition, then a callback audition, and then I get a call from my agent Friday night saying, they want to see you again. can you go in on, or maybe it was on Saturday I got the call, can you go in tomorrow, Sunday, and
Wow.
see them?
And it still was shooting on Monday.
It's still shooting on Monday. So I did one more, and I don't know that there was even anybody else there. They just wanted to see. I was in a room. Larry was there. Jerry was there. I think the whole cast might have been there. I'm not sure. Elaine and Michael might have been there too, but the writers were there. And it was a crowded room, and I did it. And they said, thanks a lot. And I went home, and then I got a call later that afternoon. Be at Radford Studios at 10 o'clock on Monday morning for table reads. Yeah. So fresh.
And how different were your auditions from the first time to the second time to the third time? Did it evolve? Did you find different things? Did you sort of go, oh, I'm in a zone, I'm just going to repeat what I did? Do you remember any of that?
It got more relaxed the more familiar I was, and the more that I knew that they liked what I did. So I did what I did before. I didn't do it with a lisp the first time and decide to do it in an English accent.
Completely different.
I didn't do anything radical.
Yeah.
Jack Lemmon used to play some parts. He would play left-handed. He's right-hand dominant, but he would play them left-handed just to see what it did to him. It probably did change, but more in the way that I knew it. I knew that in order to be better at that part, I needed to be more relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't be nervous about, God, it's Seinfeld. I
Right.
couldn't be nervous. I mean, this was the biggest, at the time, I did it in 97. It was the biggest.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I couldn't be nervous about it. And I was very lucky because I did have this gorgeous child, this boy child, that, because my wife went back to work, she ran a restaurant. She went back to work right away, 3 weeks, I think. So I had the kid. That was my gig.
Yeah.
And I loved that job. That was the best job I've ever had, ever. I'm still have it. It's a long run.
So it was less precious to you, like getting the job. You kind of were like,
Yes,
it'd be great,
exactly.
but I have this other job being a dad that's the most amazing thing ever. So it didn't become, oh my God, paralyzing. I need to have this.
Yeah, this is going to change my career. There was none of that because I knew who I was at that moment because I was the dad of this child.
Uh-huh.
And it wasn't that I didn't care about it, but you're right. It wasn't as precious. It wasn't as necessary. So I could be more relaxed and more informal. And that's what you have to do with that stuff because that's how they are. I mean, skilled, highly skilled technicians in terms of understanding comedy and knowing about comedy and how it works, which is an art and a science all of its own. Been great to be around them and work with them and see how easily they approached it.
Well, I think all great work really comes from relaxation. Even if you're playing a scene where you're very amped up or you're angry or you're in a state, you as the actor have to be relaxed and come from a place so that you can access all of that.
Yeah. The more relaxed you are, the more comfortable you are. Where you are, the freer you can be in terms of what comes out of you, what emotion comes out of you. I mean, that's why we do long, crazy, complicated warm-ups. Warm up the physical instrument, but also just to get our heads into, especially in the theater.
Yep.
One of my problems always with movies and TV is that you don't have a chance unless you take it to do a proper vocal warm-up, physical warm-up. And because at the same time you're doing that, you're also in a meditative way almost finding where your breath is.
That's one of the things I loved working with James Marsters on Buffy. He comes from a strong theater background as well. So we would get the scripts, especially season 2, a week in advance, and we would get together and rehearse and work together.
Yeah.
And it just, makes it so much
It makes
fun
such
when
a
you're on
difference
set.
when you've got that. Yeah. That was a frustration for me as the master because I would get there at 5 hours to put the makeup on, and during which that becomes your meditation, your vocal exercise, and your relaxation, and your becoming of the character. But then I never really had scenes with people that weren't just a bit here and a bit there. And then when I did, I had to be very careful of this makeup. So that the boy, the anointed one, and some of my minions that went off. The longest real acting scene I had in the whole season, the scene that had the most kind of arc to it, was with Sarah at the end when I kill her and then they bring her back to life.
Yeah.
In the last season.
I was going to mention in regards to Seinfeld, I really loved when you did the rap on the door, the musical rap coming in before. I'm sure that was your detail. And it just seems so perfect for your character as the Maestro. And also it felt like you sat in such a world with Michael Richards' Kramer.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Because I wanted it to be that, because he always has those great entrances that are right out of Feydeau. But the real magic of them is that there's a real rhythm to them. And I wanted to echo that rhythm with my musical intro. I mean, his rhythm changes all the time, but there's a core rhythm to Michael that's kind of a little erratic.
Antic.
A little jazzy.
Yeah.
And I wanted to echo that. Oh, well, good. Thank you for saying that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. I love those kind of details.
Yeah. My favorite one of that kind of thing is in the second episode of The Doll, where Elaine brings me a poster of the three tenors and there's a rubber band around it. And we never rehearsed it. We just did it. I guess I mimed it because it was too much time. So when we shot it, I just sort of did this with a lot of flair, as much flair as the maestro would have.
Would do it.
Moved the rubber band, and the rubber band moved about 6 inches. So I had to go back, do it again. And I think 3 times. The nice thing about live stuff is you only have to do it once.
Right. You don't have to match it after you do it.
Yeah, you don't have to match it. That's right. And they're not coming in for a close-up on the hand on the poster. And that was a complete accident. And that's just me moving through that moment when we're shooting.
Right. A happy accident. Well, it's one of those things, too. I think when you're in a character, those riches that do happen that are right for the character in the moment, and especially in that hot seat moment where you haven't had rehearsal, you're dealing with the prop for the first time. Sometimes those magical things unveil and reveal themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they do. The trick is to know enough about your character, know enough about yourself as it intersects with the character and that situation, that you live through it. You just keep living and keep being alive, awake to it.
And now we're going to reveal our next contenders for the Battle of the Uber Buffy fans, the ultimate trivia contest. Drum roll, please.
My name is Madeline Harper. I am from the Low Country, South Carolina region. I don't skip episodes, and my total of rewatches is probably in that 20 to 30 area.
Hi, I'm Marion from Surrey in England, and I think I've watched Buffy maybe 40 to 50 times over the years.
The demand has been overwhelming. All slots are now filled. Everyone is announced.
Let's get ready for Buffy!
You can also join our community on Patreon. Yes, loads of exciting things going on there. Our Patreon peeps to be read in the credits: Dave Hall, Timothy Kendall, Danielle Harbour, Louise Brennan, and Brandon Key. It makes all the difference because we cannot keep making the show without you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And we will see you next week when we do it again. Do it again. Until next time, rewatch, revamp, reinvent, and be remarkable you.